Okay, so we're going live, stand by, and you're about to hear the last of me. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Chief Chat. What is up, my exchange family from all over the world, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Chief Chat. My name is Chief Master Sergeant Kevin Osby, and I'm the Senior Enlisted Advisor for the Army and Air Force Exchange Service. Before we get started with our guest today, I would like to introduce my lovely co-hosts, Kiana Holloman and Dora Trillo. How y'all doing, ladies?
Good. How are
Hey,
you?
Chief. Hey, Kiana. It's going to be a fun
Sarah, welcome
show.
back.
Thank you.
So I hear y'all got some pretty bad weather in Dallas last night.
Yeah, it was a little
Yeah,
scary
it
there
was
for a
pretty
minute.
terrible.
Wow.
Well, well, yeah, I'm glad y'all okay, and I'm sitting here in sunny, warm DMV right now in DC area. I'm at Fort
Oh,
Belvoir. I was at Andrews yesterday, so big shout out to Fort Belvoir and Andrews for hosting me here in the DMV area. But without further ado, we've been having some music legends on the show, some royalty. So we got the same thing going today. So Kiana, please introduce today's guest.
Today's guest is a rock and soul music legend with more than 50 years in music. He co-founded the Rascals, known for such hits as Good Lovin', Groovin', and People Got to Be Free. He is a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Songwriters Hall of Fame, Vocal Group Hall of Fame, and Grammy Hall of Fame. He continues to tour as Felix Cavaliere's Rascals and will appear this spring in Legends Live shows with Micky Dolenz of the Monkees. So please give a warm Chief Chat welcome to Felix Cavaliere.
Hey,
Hello, everybody.
hey there, sir.
hey,
How's everybody doing today?
we're doing awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Good to see you all.
Awesome, awesome. So, can you let our viewers know where you're joining us from?
Well, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Ooh.
I, I, I guess you could tell that by my accent that I'm not from Nashville, Tennessee, but I live in Nashville, Tennessee for quite a while now.
Yeah, that's a musical city for sure. A great place for you, sir. We'd like to start off by talking about your tour schedule. So you have a lot of shows scheduled this spring and summer, and they're always super high energy. So how do you keep things fun and fresh when you've been performing for so many years?
Well, there's a long story to that. And, I had the good pleasure of working with a guru for many years who, he taught me basically mental, physical, and spiritual health. And I thank God I can still do what I do. Yeah.
We love that. Well, as Kiana mentioned in her introduction, on some of the tour, Felix Cavaliere's Rascals are sharing the bill with Micky Dolenz of the Monkees for the Legend Live shows. How did touring with him come about, and what are the chances you'll perform on each other's songs?
Well, in answer to the second one first, we're hoping to do at least one song together for the show.
How did you guys? Oh, there it is. Yeah. How did
I
you
speak.
guys? How did that touring with him, coordinate?
Well, we know we have business people who basically thought it might be a good idea. With all this pandemic that's going on and the way, like we've been kind of isolated for so long, both of our musics are happy. They're happy, uplifting
Mhm.
music. And I think people need that right now. I really think that, it's time for, although it's really tough out there. I mean, everybody knows that, but the idea is to get together and stay together. And our generation, that's what we did. We didn't have all the internet and the Facebook and all that stuff. We had music. That really was our bond. you know. So that's what I think we're going to be able to recreate.
Oh yeah. Well, hearing that song, it makes me want to go get a Dr. Pepper. I mean, like right now. So,
Gotcha, 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 gotcha.
so, so let's go back to the beginning. So, was there a record or an artist you heard when you kind of grew up that kind of made you decide that music is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Ray Charles,
Oh
Ray
yeah,
Charles.
yeah. No.
Oh,
So,
that's a
so
good
what
one.
about Ray Charles? Kind of drew you to him?
Well, let me tell you what happened real quick. I mean, I started off as a classical pianist. I was trained, from the age of 5. And one day I was going to junior high, and this fellow who was sitting in front of me, who I didn't know, he asked me, he said, "Do you like rock and roll?" And I said yes, although I had never heard rock and roll. And I went home, and we had the good fortune growing up in New York City or near New York City to have Alan Freed, who brought so-called rock and roll from Cleveland to New York. So I went home, turned on the radio. Now I play piano, but I didn't play piano like that. And I heard Ray Charles, I heard Fats Domino, I heard Jerry Lee Lewis, I heard Little Richard, and I said, you know, that's pretty cool stuff. Maybe I can do that. And that's really how it started. So I was very fortunate to be able to, kind of be in at the beginning of what we know as rock and roll.
Well, we recently had Gene Simmons on the show last week, and he mentioned Little Richard, and he also when he found out that you were going to be interviewed, he had a few wonderful comments about you as well. So, like I said,
Oh, cool.
we've had we've had the pleasure of having some heavy hitters in rock and roll, and you're definitely one of them, and we appreciate you for sharing your
Thank
art
you.
form.
Thank you. As I say, and thank you for your service. Absolutely. Yeah, we're very fortunate, So when Rascals got a record deal with Atlantic Records, which is where Ray Charles was, uh, it was pretty exciting. Pretty exciting.
So I'm curious to know, like, so how was it getting a record deal? Did somebody see you perform, or we had Albie Sure on at one point, and he said he kept calling the radio station. He kept calling the number on the back of an album until somebody picked up, and it ended up being Andre Harrell, and then like the rest was history. So just trying to get into the music business, can you kind of walk us through that a little bit?
Well, a long time ago, it was a different situation than it is now. Now it's a whole new ballgame. But going back, you know, um, we started in I think it was February, something like that, of a long time ago, and I put together a group that I thought was really going to be, the best singers and the best players that I could find. And then a gentleman came up to us. We were maybe our first or second nightclub show. We were in New Jersey, uh, and said he was opening up a place called the Hamptons. Now, if you're familiar with any of the Long Island Hamptons, the Hamptons is kind of like where all the people who can afford to go there go in the summer. The record executives go there. The movie stars go there. It's really a happening place. If you got a lot of zeros in your bank, you're out there. And so when we got that job, I knew this is where we're going to get discovered. If we're ever going to get discovered, it's here. And that's exactly what happened. A gentleman came in, and he happened to be in the textile business. So he called up a fellow who he knew, whose name was Sid Bernstein. Now, Sid Bernstein was the man that brought the Beatles to the United States. So he
Wow.
saw us, he signed us, and then the next thing they contact the record companies, and they get them to come to see you, and that was really a blessed event because Atlantic was the only label that would allow us to produce ourselves. I wanted to do our own music. When the people came in and they liked what they heard, I said, "Well, let me try it," and they did it.
So, Felix, early in your career, you performed with Joey D and the Starlighters, who had a big hit before you joined with Peppermint Twist. So, what was it like working with the Starlighters, and how did that lead to you founding the Young Rascals?
Well, I like talking to people that weren't even born then. You know what I'm saying? That's really nice. Yeah, I was working at a hotel. I was in school. I was a pre-med student at Syracuse, and I took a summer and went to the Catskill Mountains, which is another place where New Yorkers and New Jersey and Connecticut people go for summer. And while I was there, this gentleman came in. They were the headliners, called Joey D and the Starlights. They had a hit called Peppermint Twist. Well, it's funny how God works, man, because that I met a whole new group of people that were to influence the rest of my life. Okay, so then we skip to like the September when you're going back to school, and they called me up because their organ player had quit, and they were in Europe, and they said, "Well, can you fly over here right away?" Well, I spoke to my father, and I said, "Look, I got an opportunity here, and what do you think?" Well, he said, "Wow, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe like you should go." So, long story short, I went to Frankfurt, Germany, and I went to with them on tour. And when the first day that I arrived, the first show that we did, there was this group opening up for Joey. And I walked in the club, and everybody was screaming and hollering and screaming and hollering. And I said, "What's going on here?" Oh, that's the Beatles. I said, "The what?" So that's the Beatles. I said, "Well, wait a minute. We never heard of them yet in the States." So what I saw was a bunch of skinny guys up there with long hair. All these women are going like bananas. And I looked over and I heard them playing. I said, "Well, when they're doing American music, they ain't doing it. That ain't right. You know, they just didn't have the feeling. But when they did their stuff, when they did their music, you just had to go. Wait a minute, what's going on here? Well, something's definitely going on because everybody's hysterical. So that's when I made a decision. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be in the music business right there. That did it.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, as you said, I wasn't quite born yet, but I've seen YouTube. Thanks to YouTube, I've seen a little bit of the video. But the Young Rascals were still new, like you said, when you opened up for the Beatles at the famous Shea Stadium concert in 1965. And you just mentioned you barely even knew who they were or didn't know. How intimidating was that? Because that was a big show and a big band to open up for.
This is the interesting thing, seriously, because I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. So here's why I'm writing a book, because we did a tour, we did a Broadway show in 2013. We meaning the original Rascals, and we had a press conference. And at a press conference, the four of us were sitting there, and the press would ask us questions. And I noticed that every single one of us had a different answer for the same question. And one of the reasons is because the stories get so crazy. So let me correct you with all due respect.
Okay.
Our manager brought the Beatles to Amen the first time when they came to Ed Sullivan's show. And then he also brought them to Shea Stadium. Okay. Well, when they came to Shea Stadium, we were not really known yet. We were not signed. We were kind of like just getting going. And what he did was on the scoreboard, he put "The Rascals are coming, the Rascals are coming, the Rascals are coming." And the manager for the Beatles, his name was Brian Epstein, he didn't particularly like that. He said, "I tell you what, if that's not off within 15 seconds, there ain't no show." So it's just like, you see, that's what stories get like. And that's why I wrote this book, because I'm not sure that Custer lost that battle. I mean, I wasn't there. So I thought I better write it down because, with all due respect, people get the wrong ideas. And boy, we're living in the era of wrong ideas. You know what I mean? What do they call that? Alternative news?
Yeah.
Now, there's only one way, man, and that's it. And that's what I'm writing down, you see.
Awesome. So once the group was formed, man, success hit y'all real quick. So with your second single,
Yeah.
"Good Love," hitting #1, which was more exciting, hearing your music on the radio for the first time, or learning that you had your first #1 record?
Well, it depends. it's so exciting. I mean, it's even today when I'm walking through like Whole Foods or something like that, and I hear my voice up there, I just kind of grin. You know, it's a wonderful feeling. And listen, when you make music and people like what you hear, it doesn't get much better than that. You know what I'm saying? So it's always a joy.
Yep. Oh yeah. Listen, I'm going to the vending machine right after this.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Well, we
awesome.
had fun,
Awesome.
man. We had a good group. We had Atlantic was we were the first white act on Atlantic. So, that's something. I'm walking through the halls over there. I'm looking around at people. I got my whole record collection standing in front of me. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that's
Everybody's.
awesome.
It was pretty. It was, except for Ray Charles had left by that time. He was over a different place. But I met him anyway. You know. And man, I
Yeah.
tell you,
So
I did a show. I'm sorry. I get excited when I talk about Ray Charles, man,
no,
because
go ahead.
I did a show with Joan Rivers, and he was sitting at the bench, at the table there where they and I was playing in the band there. There was a band, like what Paul Schaefer did on Letterman, and I'm
Hmm.
looking right at him. I'm singing right to you, my man, and I'm singing. Every time I did something, he went like this, and I said, "Man,
you know you got him.
he
Hey, you
really."
know you got him
I,
when he did that, right?
yeah, let me tell you, and later years I found out seriously that he was a fan of my music, and you know what, that I mean, like I say, it's just, when you come from a classical world, you know what I'm saying, everything's really like straight, and then you hear church, you hear what he's doing, which, I had never heard anything like that. It said like, well, I'm gonna have to learn some of this because this is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's just crazy how music gives you a different feeling. So different type genres of music gives your body a whole different type of feeling. So I can imagine in classical, your body can feel one way, but then when you hear church or soul, it's a whole different feeling. And so that's the power of music.
Well, also, my mom, rest her soul, she was a very religious lady. Like I used to say, like if there was 8 days a week, she'd have gone 8 days. But so we had that. We had that in our. But when you talk about doing it through music, which is such a powerful way of communicating, that it really, it gets you. And even though he was not exactly singing church church lyrics, but it really made a difference. And Little Richard's another one. I live in Nashville. He just recently passed, Little Richard, but he lived here before he passed. But you just never hear anything like that. Where I come from. You know what I'm saying? You had to travel, not that far, but you just didn't hear it. And as I say, for me to be able to play like that and learn to sing like that was a big thing for me. It really was. It was a joyous occasion. Let's say that.
Awesome. So we could talk about the stories behind your songs all day, but one song we'd really like to hear about is "People Got to Be Free," so which
Yep.
came out in a very significant time in 1968. So, what memories does that song stir up from that time?
Well, I mean, it's so funny. Here we are in 2022, and this song is still kind of important. You know, doesn't make sense. I'm listening to my music here.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, no, I'm listening.
Yeah, I got it right. I was working for Robert Kennedy. We were working for his campaign. We were trying to get him elected. We really felt, a lot of us in the '60s, we really got involved in what we were trying to do. I won't call it politics because we were really serious about changing the world. Let's get together here. Because and that was what was behind that. And when you work for somebody's campaign like that, regardless even then or now, you're very, very, very into it. You're very strongly attached. And I was dating a woman at that time who was actually present when he was assassinated. You know.
Oh.
Now, also, we were on Atlantic Records when Martin Luther King got assassinated. Now, here's the difference between then and now. Here's the difference. When Martin Luther King got assassinated, there were no riots in Atlantic Records. Everybody was crying. That's the difference. So
Yeah.
when he got assassinated, it hit me like really hard because, as I say, we were really, really thinking about change. We're still thinking about change, quite frankly. But you know, so I said, well, I got to write something so that people understand. They got to understand, if nothing else, just what I'm feeling, what we're feeling. Just to make it clear. This is where we're coming from. And it's not a big deal, man. People got to be free. Do unto you what you do to me. Come on. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about the golden rule. I mean, it's in every Bible in the world, I think. I hope so. The record company, they didn't think it was a good idea, and I don't know why. Because that record was number one, not only in USA, but in all the places where there was like, at that time it was called the Union of South Africa. That time was the Berlin Wall was up, number one there. Hong Kong, number one. So it just pride is not the right word. I'm just happy that I did that we did that because hey, it's important.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did it as well. Like I said, I'm sure during that time it wasn't as popular. Like you said, the record company didn't think it was a good idea. But it's like I like the way you differentiated the fact that it's not politics; it's about making the world a better place. And so,
It's not
you
politics.
people, yeah, people like to throw the word politics, and then that gets everybody divided and all kind of other stuff. You just see something that doesn't feel right, and you speak on it. And so that's what you did, and we appreciate you for that.
Well, I'll tell you, I came up, my family's Italian, and you know, my mom and dad, they were educated people. I mean, they came up and they wanted us to live in a town where we would get a great education. So they moved us up to Westchester County, New York, and they did. I got a great education, but I learned real quick that we were not as good as these people. And I said, wait a minute. What do you mean we're not as good as these people? What are you talking about? Well, my mom, she's in my book here. She wanted to join this flower club. Don't ask me why, because women I'll never understand to begin with. You know what I'm saying? You want to join the flower club, all right?
It's
But this is
nice.
the truth. Now I'm a kid, and my mom, excuse me, they wouldn't let her in. You can serve the food, they said. I said, what? You can serve the food. My mom was a freaking head of a hospital pharmacy before women were even allowed out of the house. You know what I'm saying? What do you mean, sir?
Hmm.
That's when I became like I don't know, a rebel.
Mhm.
Tick me. So
Yeah.
yeah. So I've been there all my life.
Well, Felix, we've talked a lot about your singles and just the passion that you have behind your music and your own story that influences your musical success. But what's an album, either from the Rascals or a solo album, that you're particularly proud of?
Well, right now I've got to say Freedom Suite because of the fact that look what's going on over there overseas. And I don't know. I hope Sergeant, you don't get called over there. I don't know what's going on, and I don't think anybody else does. And we should be on alert. But I can only imagine, what our parents went through when that European maniac was doing his thing. But I think Freedom Suite right now has a lot of things that I would like to say. So I'm proud of it.
That's
That's the one right there. That guy there. Yeah, I
yeah.
see him.
Well, Felix, thank you so much for sharing, and I hope you're putting a lot of this stuff in your book because I look forward to reading about it. Meeting your idol and story about your mom really really is touching. Thank you so much for sharing. Some I mean that's really near
Yeah.
and dear to a lot of people's hearts, and um, just kind of everybody has their stories, and we just excited to read about them. But something else, of course, we're the Army Air Force Exchange, and our veterans also near and dear to our heart. And you've performed at several benefit concerts for veterans. So what does supporting veterans, especially Vietnam veterans, mean to you?
Yeah. Well, as I say, when you appreciate, what people do, you got to tell them every once in a while. And I guess, the way to say it is thank you for your service, But the Vietnam, ladies and gentlemen, they really, really misunderstood, And so when I do my show, when I do People Gotta Be Free, I announce it like this. I say, I've been doing this song for a long time. I've been opening up this song this way. I hope I don't have to do it much longer like this. But I say, can we say a prayer for our brothers and sisters that are overseas right now? And then I preface it by saying, and any of you Vietnam ladies and gentlemen that are here, thank you, you know. And it's not a big deal, but you know what I mean? Like, what's the matter with you? You don't understand that these people are risking their lives? They're risking their lives, so thank you. But I mean, it's just part of us, and, I didn't serve because in the beginning of the Vietnam situation, they said, long hair, uh, I don't know if we want you around here. I tell you what, if there's a nuclear problem, we'll call you. So I didn't get a chance to go. We'll call you. They were pretty strict in the beginning. They were looking at us like, what's that? You know.
Well, Felix, we are going to turn to our live Facebook feed. You have so many fans watching right now. Mercedes
All
says,
right.
great interview, learning a lot about your background and how you came into the music field. John says, love the stories. Keep them coming. Yes, we absolutely love these stories. Chris says, rock legend. The Beatles story was amazing. Connor says,
Yeah.
thanks so much for doing this for the military community. Even with as much success and longevity as you've enjoyed in your career, are there any artists you haven't had the chance to work with yet that you'd like to in the future?
Wow. Well, I think right now, I've been around so many. Bruno Mars looks like the guy right now that I say, like, man, this
Yeah.
he does it up, And I tried to write a rap song a year ago. Let me tell you, no, that's not easy. If you think it's easy, try. I mean, it's not easy. Let's put it like that. We have a museum down here, Afro American Museum. I don't know if you're aware of that in Nashville, but anybody that gets a chance to go down there, you should see it, because they kind of walk you through all the different eras, starting Amen way back in the South, all the way to present, and they've got a little booth in there where you can go in and do your own rap, you know. And anybody thinks they can rap, come on and try it.
Oh yeah, we need to
Yeah.
try that.
Yeah, if you get down here, my granddaughter lives in Austin, so I hope that storm didn't hit down there you were talking about. But
Oh
so,
yeah. No.
Sergeant, are you active right now? Are you active service right now?
Yeah. I'm active duty right now. I've been in. This will be year number 25 for me.
Uh-oh.
Wow, really? Man, you look like a young guy, my man. Yeah,
Uh,
25. That's good.
Cocoa butter. So
That's
cocoa
pretty.
butter and no stress is the
That does it,
secret.
huh?
So
I'm gonna get me some right now. Let me tell you. Well, if you don't mind me asking, are you all on high alert there, or are you guys pretty much watching what's going on very
oh yeah.
carefully?
We're definitely got our eyes and ears tuned to what's going on over there in Europe, and so but you know we got some folks that are already kind of postured in different places, and so yeah, we
Gotcha. Gotcha.
definitely just trying to figure out what's going on. Hopefully, this can resolve peacefully, and so everybody can come back home. So it's just yeah.
If there's anything left of this country, man. But anyway, not to get into that, but that's not right. That's not
Yeah.
right. So I don't know what's going to happen, but we stay tuned and praying for you guys, because we don't need anything after COVID. We certainly don't need this now. Let me tell you.
Correct. Now we appreciate your
We,
prayers, and so
oh
so
yeah,
we want to touch on your book that you had, because like you said, there's a lot of half truths or no truths or whatever truths out there in the world, and you got this new biography, memoir of a rascal, that's being released today, as a matter of fact.
yeah.
So all the folks listening in, please go get the book. Uh, what was revisiting your past for the book kind of made you think about your legacy?
Well, I've been here a long time. I've been here, and I realized that Rascal part was only 5, 6 years of my life. What about the rest? So I wrote mostly about how I come up, and like I say, talking about my mom and everybody, and all the stories of the, I've had a great, great, great career, great life, and so I just kind of share it for some people, like for example, like the young folks, like I really had no idea I was going to be a musician. Seriously, I started off playing, but I went to college and I was thinking I was going to be a doctor. I didn't think I was going to do this. So I try to tell the young folk, you really don't know where, God or whatever you want to say is going to direct you. Oh, when the door opens up, recognize it and go through it. That's what I did. So I kind of, to me, it's like an inspiration for people to just say, look what you can do if you want to. And don't let anybody tell you that you can't, because you can, and don't tell anybody that you know what you're doing, because we don't know what we're doing. We just go by. My teacher, I had the really good fortune, and this is a big part of the book, of studying with a guru all these years, a man from India named Swami Satchidananda, which he's the gentleman that opened up the Woodstock. And basically, to make it very simple, he taught me these words: "I am thine, all is thine, thy divine will be done." And I think if everybody just kind of like just relax a little bit right now and just like let it happen, we may be okay. We may be okay. As a matter of fact, I'm sure we're going to be okay.
Yes, Felix, I know this book is going to be so insightful just for everyone, especially right now, as what you touched on earlier with the tour, just being a time where we need positivity, we need redirection, and just, to find that inner peace and that inner joy for ourselves. So super excited to read your book. For our viewers, where can they go to find your book, and where can we find out more about you, your work, and all of your causes?
Right there, FelixCavalieremusic.com. That's it. My whole life sitting right there on that website. It's interesting, people know a lot about you. It's really interesting. It's interesting writing a book. I tell you, it's a little boring, because all these stories and you're just sitting there and talking about it, But it's finally done and it's out, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I
I'm
just
sure it could be a
noticed.
little.
Oh, Chief, I was
Oh
going to
no,
ask
go ahead.
a quick question, if it's okay.
Go
I
ahead.
just noticed when they flashed the screen, the image, it had Paul McCartney and Linda McCartney. Were they part of the book? Were they collaborators with you?
You see that photo? That was taken
Yes.
by Linda McCartney. Uh, she was she was a charming, really sweet lady. I mean, she was just, but in her early years before she met Paul, she was a photographer, and she would come around to the shows and take pictures. And so, if anybody really wants to see her work, she's got these two, like those big volumes you put on your coffee table of all of the people of that era. And uh, the estate was kind enough to allow me to use that on the cover. So I'm really thankful, because it's a really nice picture too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure even telling those stories can be somewhat therapeutic too, because sometimes you got stories that you kind of have had pent up, and not really anybody to kind of release all this tension over years or whatever the case may be. So I've talked to service members that have written books, and it's been super therapeutic for them. So yeah, that I'm
In a
sure that
lot of ways,
process,
I
like
think
you said.
excuse me, I'm sorry. I think it could be, but like I say, it's so interesting being around for all these years. I'll tell you that. You just keep going, and you realize that, oh man, I got 2 pages there. I think we put it in. I don't know. I decided to write down all the people that I've been on stage with and that I've worked with in various things, in various shows. My God, it's 2 pages long. It's fantastic. Yeah, I've been real blessed, and I appreciate it, because a lot of these people are not here anymore. They're not here. Like the people like Jimi Hendrix, and I talk about it in the book. I don't know if people know what a nice human being he was. He was just a real hu- humble kind of guy. He wasn't like a guy who lights the world on fire. He was just a nice man. He was a nice guy. And I don't know if they know that. I don't know if his image through the years has portrayed that. But as I met people like Wilson Pickett and James Brown. I mean, I met all these gentlemen, and some of them they're out there, bro. Let me tell you, there's something out there. Oh my God, yeah. But it's really interesting being around all these folks, and you hear their music, and you don't know, their personalities. Like Wilson used to get mad at us all the time. He said, "Man, I can't get in that studio. Them rascals in there all the time, all the time. I want to make some music." He was a he was a hoot. Let me tell you. Yeah,
That's all.
Sam and Dave. Sam and Dave. Like I used to. Sam is still a friend of mine. And I tell you something. There's I don't think there's too many better singers in the planet Earth than Sam Moore. And those who don't know Sam Moore, turn on Sam and Dave sometime. So we used to ask him, say, Sam, well, how do you guys split up the vocals with you and Dave? And he says, well, when I get tired, I let Dave sing. He said,
Oh, that's classic story. So yeah,
good people.
we're definitely looking forward to checking out that book and kind of going down memory lane and probably just for younger folks discovering some new folks that they didn't even know about that were doing awesome stuff back in those days.
Yeah, they should take a look. People like from the past, like because that's where we all come up from. And like Bo Diddley. I mean, I don't know if they know Bo Diddley, but Bo Diddley had this New Orleans thing going, and which is actually an African thing going way before. A lot of people still use that riff that he had. You know what I mean? And I don't know if people go back that far. Because it's different today. But the nice thing, there's good things and bad things about the streaming, but you can listen to anything you want.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is they'll go back and hear a song from back in the '60s and then know the modern version because it was sampled 3 or 4 times by other
Yeah,
kind of newer
yeah,
artists and not
yeah.
even know what the original song sounds like. So I think that in itself is probably something eye opening for a lot of young folks to go back and just go through people's catalog and just like, oh man, just like the Dr. Pepper commercial, right? Your song was sampled on the Dr. Pepper commercial and all these other different things. And so, yeah, it's amazing. I get a chance to go on YouTube too and go back and go back and go back, and I'm like, man, this has been remade or sampled at least 6, 7 times in 6 different songs. So,
Yeah, it's interesting. It really is interesting. And then of course, they remix it and they put that new beat and they put new beats in it, and it's things, but still the same song. It's like that
yeah,
song. What was it? Uh, uh, they came up with Phil Collins. I can feel it rolling in the air. Did you see that? The two young
yeah.
fellows that saw that, they were like, "Man, this is so cool." Yeah, we had good music in those days. Yeah, we had good music in those days. But it's different. It's a different world, and I think I can hear my folks saying like, "What is that you doing? What is that you all doing?" And I'm sure we're saying that now too. It's different, very different.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but before we let you go, Felix, for our Chief Chat viewers, you can find this episode as well as past Chief Chat episodes on YouTube and Spotify. Be sure to tune in on March 29th when our guest will be talk show host, author, chef, and entrepreneur Daphne Oz. So
Excellent.
Felix, uh, yeah, listen, I got the best job in the military, so I get a chance to talk to cool folks like yourself, and they actually pay me for it. So that's the crazy part about that. But
You do this as part of the military, huh? You're a lucky man,
yeah,
and you're
yeah,
surrounded by
this is
beautiful
just
ladies. I mean, come on, man, you're doing all right, bro. You're happening.
listen.
Yes, sir.
I'm not complaining at all. I'm not complaining at all. But it's
I
been an
gotta
honor
tell you,
having you with us today.
it's nice to see people smiling. Let me tell you, it's just nice to see
Yeah.
smiling. Yeah. God bless you guys.
No. God bless you,
Thank
and
you.
thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, you spending the last 45 minutes with us just meant so much to a bunch of people. And like you
Good.
said, we enjoy smiling, and your music makes us smile. So thank you
Yeah.
for putting such positive messages out in the world. Even people thank us for our service, but what you contribute to the world. I mean, your legacy is gonna live forever, and you made
Yeah.
people feel good, and that's all you can do. That's all you can ask for a human
Yeah.
being to do.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, you know, seriously. The old golden rule, pretty simple. Do unto others. Come on. That's not that hard, is it? Anyway, be safe, you all. God bless you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you
And
so
if you don't mind hanging
much.
on till after the
No,
live,
I
and
don't.
we'll say our formal goodbyes. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and end the show. We wish you all the best. Thank you very much, and Chief Chat out.